It's interesting to see how many shared yet unique experiences thousands of people have worldwide. There are people who live lives of privilege, with their only worries being their favorite bag being out of stock. And even those who worry about whether their rent can be paid by the end of the month generally still live relatively privileged lives, having iPhones, clothes, and some food. Then there are people who do not have smartphones, live in small apartments with a large family. Even when they don't want to, have to accept hand-me-downs and charity and are truly struggling with rent. Everyone in this world no doubt has their struggles, and based on where you are at in life, some struggles feel worse than others. But then one must question where they are at and whether those struggles are worth worrying about. Today, we will explore the memory of Matthew, a South American migrant who came with his family seeking a better life in California. I sat down with Matthew and asked him, "What was your experience of coming to America for the first time? How old were you? How did you feel?"
I came here when I was 14 years old. It was a very hard and frightening experience that I never thought I would have to go through. Learning a new language was not easy, especially when people would make fun of me for not knowing the language and struggling to pronounce specific words. My main language is Spanish and I went to a predominantly Latino high school. But the students there were very discriminatory of my status. They would make me feel that I was less than them just because I did not speak English. Some students would try to play pranks on me just because they knew the teacher did not speak Spanish and I had no way of communicating. Going to school was an everyday nightmare. I feared every day because I did not know if there would be an issue that I could not solve based on my inability to properly communicate or to ask for help. Eventually, I found people that would be willing to occasionally translate for me whenever I needed help. I learned to become very approachable and friendly to befriend bilingual students. None of these were friends that I could actually make a connection with and grow a relationship with. They were only people that I could talk to during class. Regardless of how many people I befriended at lunch, I would be reminded of the loneliness that came with not speaking the language of those around me.
Hearing about Matthew's memory of his U.S. educational experience was heartbreaking. The irony of Mexican Californian-born adolescents being discriminatory and making him feel less than them just because he did not speak English shows precisely how out of touch they were from their Mexican roots. According to the Hispanic Journal of Behavioral Sciences, publication by Julian J. Mendez, Sherry Bauman, and Raphael M. Glory, in their article titled "Bullying of Mexican Immigrant Students by Mexican American Students, an examination of intercultural bullying," they state that the data reveal that bullying does occur between the two groups, with Mexican American students consistently bullying Mexican immigrant students. Two major themes emerge from the data: language barrier and superiority. This is found in paragraph 1. This quantitative study shows that there are more students just like Matthew being bullied just for being a migrant. Moreover, many children go to school to feel safe. However, despite going to a predominantly Latino high school, Matthew did not feel safe. Instead, he was ostracized and made to feel a deep sense of loneliness that came with not speaking the language of those around him. He could never truly connect with these bilingual people because they were also a part of the problem. Imagine trying to learn a new language in a new country. And this is kind of rare, but you are also surrounded by hundreds of people who can really help you. But they choose not to. Why? Is it because they lost the cultural and communicative memories of the struggles of their past native Mexican ancestors? Matthew continues his statement.
The same thing would happen when I would go home and have to do my homework from a textbook that seemed full of non-understandable gibberish. Even if there was not much improvement to my situation, I felt that I could catch a little bit of my breath from all the anxiety and fear that came with school, at least during class. Nonetheless, this illusion that things would get easier quickly disappeared when I most needed the help of those who I thought were my friends. The academic, counselors, and anyone else to understand the schooling system and things such as classes needed to graduate. They turned their backs on me. They were embarrassed to be seen with me speaking Spanish. I never felt so lost. Yet, I was full of anger towards them, my lack of language skills, and the schooling system that just seemed to isolate English learners like myself. I remember going back to my classroom and saying that I would make sure to never ever have to depend on any of them.
Before beginning this response, I would like to provide you with one of many tragic examples of the U.S. government's forceful ways of stealing California from Mexico and Mexicans. Then I want to ask you, is it then right in today's moral standards to then pretend like the language was never a part of the land of Los Angeles? According to the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, in their article, When the Big League Destroyed the Barrio, they write, Los Angeles Sheriff's deputies forcefully removed any remaining Mexican-American families and their belongings from the Chavez Ravine for the Dodgers to build a new stadium. This is found on paragraph 2. Forceful police brutality. Families uprooted and forced to move with little to no compensation, and a disregard for the memories they are forced to leave behind with no chance to recover anything themselves. All this to build a stadium for the entertainment of white U.S. Americans. It baffles me that something as tragic as this has university academically credible evidence found on the second page of Google. This goes to show how hidden Mexican history is in the state that was once Mexican. But with white culture dominating the newfound California land, paired with a history that is genuinely difficult for the general population to come by, it doesn't surprise me that even academic guidance counselors turned their backs on him when he needed them most. It is the culture of forgetfulness that takes play here. As Mark Hugo Lopez, Jens Manuel Krogstad, and Antonio Flores write in their Pew Research article titled, Most Hispanic parents speak Spanish to their children, but this is less the case in later immigrant generations. Among the immigrant parents, nearly all, 97%, say they do this, but the share drops to 71% among U.S.-born second-generation Latino parents, those with at least one immigrant parent. And the share falls to just 49% among third or higher generation Latino parents, those born in the U.S. to U.S.-born parents. This is found on paragraph 2. With the rapid trend of lost communicative memory, the cultural memory of the language is too lost. Lost history is correlated with lost language, and these may be some of the largest driving factors towards poor treatment of Mexican migrants like Matthew. Counselors whose job is to ensure an academically successful pathway for their students were embarrassed to be seen with a Spanish speaker, as if the language of California or Los Angeles never had Spanish as its native tongue. But this memory of California's forgetfulness pushed Matthew to be strong, as he made a goal for himself that he would make sure that he would never ever have to depend on any of them again. Matthew finishes up his answer in an unfortunate yet inspiring way.
I wanted to be the best version of myself that could outclass them. Eventually, this was my trigger to understand and write English in 1/2 year and speak it well enough to be understood in 1.5 years. I finished the English Learner program in 1/2 of the time of the average student and got perfect scores in standardized tests such as the CASI. After that, everything did get easier. I just got better to the point where I could get myself out of my situation at the time. The reason why I state this story is because during that 1.5 years, the only thing that kept pushing me forward and allowed me to outclass people was the memory of people being mean to me, people not helping me when I needed them, and the people that I was leaving behind as I was beginning my stay on this new place. Even now when things get hard, I remember all the things that I have go through and how much hard work and dedication I have put on improving, so that I do not give up and keep pushing against the adverse situations that life puts on my way. Which is why I believe that my memories and the feeling attached to them are a powerful tool that can push me and hopefully inspire others to not give up even when things seem impossible or hopeless. Those memories of pain and hard times, and how I overcame them, will always be there for me whenever I need them.
Matthew said, I wanted to be the best version of myself that could outclass them. From this point forward, Matthew could not see these Mexican Californians as a community he can be a part of. They have othered him, and in response, he has no other choice but to see himself as different. As unfortunate of a choice that is, it is ultimately the path that was given to him by the community that should have and could have empowered him another way. With that, Matthew excelled. In 1.5 years, he scored perfect on multiple standardized tests, one of which being the CASI, the California High School Exit Examination. Additionally, he learned English 2 times faster than the average student. It is quite interesting to see how discrimination from others can truly push someone to work harder. According to the article, Perfectly American, Constructing the Refugee Experience by David W. Haynes and Karen E. Rosenblum, they write, with a striking consistency, refugees were described as exemplifying the classic American virtues. They were hard workers, wanting to work, ready to work, dependable workers, willing to take entry-level jobs, feel themselves fortunate to have a minimum wage job, glad to be here, adjusting remarkably well, having problems that can be overcome, making every effort to learn English, tolerant of their loss of occupational and economic stature, taxpayers, and future business owners. Migrants like Matthew are motivated to work harder in everything that they do because they fear the poor treatment and lifestyle of their past. For many migrants and refugees, the American dream is real, though some may argue it does not exist in modern society. And while it may not for some, Matthew saw this as an opportunity to thrive. The next question I asked was, how did the memory of wanting to come to America contrast the reality of how America really was?
I grew up in Mexico and all we have there is Hollywood. I thought it was as the camera showed, all pretty and full of richness. Everyone has money, there is no poverty, and most people are white. Having this idea of the U.S., I always wanted to come to the U.S. because my family and I wanted to have a better life and enjoy the richness the U.S. seemed to offer to everyone. To my surprise, nothing was like that. I came here and was poorer than I was in Mexico, so poor that I didn't even have a house to live in and had to live with my uncle, who was a smoker and an alcoholic. He eventually became the reason why I got asthma, but I will always be thankful to him for opening his house to my family.
Every country has its bad and good parts. We see examples of this in Kemet, a film by Kanan Turan, which we watched in my German 110 class at UCLA. In the short film, Turan shows off her grandmother's home country in Turkey. In it, we see some beautiful parts as well as some maybe not so beautiful parts. Most Hollywood movies only show the beautiful and rich cities, totally glancing over the homeless and struggling classes. His family wanted to have a better life and enjoy the richness the U.S. seemed to offer to everyone. America is gold-plated just like any other country. We have our poor communities and our wealthy communities, just like any other country in the world. As Matthew admits, in America, he lived a poorer life. His father had to work below minimum wage, not even enough to pay rent elsewhere. Matthew was forced to live with his uncle who gave him asthma. Although he is very thankful for his uncle's help, there is no doubt that there was more about his uncle he was not revealing. I saw anger and fear in his eyes as he spoke about his uncle being a smoker and alcoholic. Some memories, I assume, are meant to be untold. He then continues.
The one thing that I remember and that I will never forget is that for a whole month I wore shoes with the soles full of holes. I would have to tape them, glue them every day. The walk home would be very painful and PE would be horrible because the asphalt was hotter than the normal street. And I could not let my pain be visible because people would notice the state of my shoes, which would only make my situation even worse since people already treated me as beneath them. However, this was nothing compared with the face of my dad. I could see the frustration in his face and the sadness of his kids going through a similar pain like the one he went through. He grew up even poorer than us. He was so poor that he had to work from an early age, only had 2 changes of clothes for his whole childhood. And his shoes were very ripped and worn out as they were passed down from his older brother. Even to this day, that memory drives me to keep pushing forward and do my best to improve my current situation and eventually pay my parents back for all their love and hard work by giving them a nicer life than the one they gave me once I obtained my profession.
The parallels between Matthew's father and himself both not having proper shoes to wear on a daily basis is an example of generational poverty. It is poverty that is ingrained in memory. While Matthew remembers his father not having proper shoes, he manifests it into a form of motivation to keep it hidden despite it being very painful to walk home. His father, on the other hand, was frustrated and full of sadness as he realized that life in North America may not be what he hoped it would be. As he saw the memory of the past intertwining with the present for them both, not having proper shoes. Despite seeing the generational repetition of poverty, the communicative memory that Matthew's father passed down to Matthew ultimately gave him the drive and confidence to do his best and keep pushing forward. He wanted to improve his current situation, just like how he did in school by learning English. Like many immigrants and migrants and refugees, the communicative memory of parental past paired with current situation pushed Matthew to strive to give his parents a nicer life than the one that they gave him. For the final question, I will leave Matthew's response as is. There is no need to analyze and add on to it, because it truly speaks for itself. I asked Matthew, "Where are you now? Looking back, would you change anything about your past?"
Now, I am a current UCLA graduate with a triple science major in microbiology, miniology, and biology with a minor of Chicano studies, and a fully registered and certified emergency medical technician, in the process to become a medical physician. Based on my poor experience with the language, I also decided to learn Mandarin, so that I can expand my help to a greater population other than Latinos by giving culturally and linguistically competent care as a future physician. My life until now has been extremely hard. Although there have been little moments of happiness, the reality is that I have suffered quite a bit and sacrificed a lot to be where I am. Having said this, I would not change anything in my life because, as I mentioned before, my experience, the memories that I made and the emotions that I have gone through are part of who I am. They let me know that no matter what, or how low I fall, how desperate I feel, or even get an extreme feeling of despair, I will be okay. And as long as I keep giving my best and not let things drag me down for too long, I can always keep pushing forward and upwards. Thanks to those memories and their pain, their happiness, their sadness, and their peace, that I know that no matter what life throws at me, I am ready to face it forward. I do believe that if I am where I am, it is because of the painful moments in life. Because if you are happy, you will never do anything to change because there is nothing to feel bad about. Pain is the ultimate form of drive that is focused constructively. It can push you to new heights, where you can help people and prevent them from going through the bad situations that you are or will go through.